Welcome to the second section of session 8, and we're going to talk about sourcing for parallel exports. And in the second section, we're going to talk about various aspects of sourcing. The first one being factors affecting sourcing decisions. And this is slide number 20. Now, the key factors in sourcing decisions, number one is availability. I'm not going to buy something from somewhere where something is not available. So availability is one of the key factors in sourcing decision. Delivery schedule and time. If someone can deliver in the given amount of time, only then I'll buy. If you're going to give me something at such a date where I will not be able to deliver to my client on time, then I'll not buy from you. The third key factor is minimum order quantity. Now, I have got an order of, let's say, 5,000 shirts. The shirt consumption is, let's say, 2 meters per shirt. Now, 5,000 shirts into 2 meters is 10,000 meters. Now, I get in touch with the mill and I ask them that, I want to place an order of 10,000 meters. Now, if the mill says, we don't do anything less than 50,000 meters, then what do? I'm not going to place 50,000 meters. I just need 10,000. So if someone cannot do 10,000 meters for me, I'm not going to buy from them. Fourth factor is quality. I want an economic quality, not a bad quality. I need an economic quality because my budget is less. Because the buyer, because my client is not a very premium buyer. So I have to make the product at very economic prices. So I need economic quality. If a vendor says I can only give you high quality, not the medium quality, I'm not going to buy from that vendor. Now the fifth factor is cost, product cost, transportation cost, carry cost. Now when you're buying something from someone, you are not going to decide only on the product cost. You will also have to see whether the transportation cost and the carry cost is on the lower side. You buy from one person, but then the transportation cost is very high because that person is situated far away from you. And there's another person who's giving you a little higher price, but then is very closely situated. So your cost, your overall cost is your product cost plus the transportation and carry cost. Now the totality of that should be the lowest. That will be the deciding factor. The sixth point is risk. I am not going to buy from a vendor who is very risky. Someone who is stable, someone who has worked in the trade for a long time, someone who bears a good reputation, I'm going to buy from that person. Someone who is not known or someone who is actually known to be very uncertain. If that vendor gives a great price, a very low price, still I'm not going to buy because I won't find confidence, and therefore I'm not going to take the risk. So if placing an order with a particular vendor is a very risky proposition, I'll not place the order. Seventh point is technology. The vendors manufacture raw material using different technologies. Now someone is using a traditional technology, someone is using an obsolete technology, and someone is using the state-of-the-art technology. Now if I want a product which is cheap and which can be made using regular technology, I want that. Now if someone says I only do state-of-the-art technology, it's going to be expensive. And I'm not one of those innovative companies. I cannot buy. But someone who is known to be a very innovative brand, a market leader, a design leader, they will only buy products from those vendors who have the latest technology. That is going to be the key factor in sourcing decision. And the eighth point is capital requirements in terms. The capital requirements in terms of what is the infrastructure required to make a particular type of product. So if a particular vendor does not have that type of infrastructure, in that case I will not buy from them. If we take the another meaning of capital, which is money, then as a buyer of raw material, my capital requirement would be, if a vendor can give me a credit period of 30 days or 45 days, it will be great. So there will be quite a few times when I am running short of cash and I have to run the factory and I've got a lot of orders. So who would I place the order for raw materials? Now there's vendor A who's giving me a great price but is not ready to give me credit. And there's vendor B which is charging a little higher but is ready to give me a credit period of 30 or 45 days. What do I do? So even at higher price, I'll be buying it because the person is giving me the credit. So the capital requirement in terms can also be a very critical factor in sourcing decision. And the ninth factor is the most important and painful, which is nomination. In case your client says that you have to buy the raw material only from this vendor XYZ in China, in that case you don't have to make any sourcing decision because it is forced upon you. Your client is saying that you will have to buy only from XYZ in China. That's it. Now why is it painful? Because you cannot negotiate with this vendor. Whatever price this vendor charges, you will have to pay that. Why? Because your client has said that you will have to buy the raw material from this particular vendor only. So this is the most painful and hated factor in sourcing decision. And now we're going to talk about sourcing process. We are on slide number 22. Sourcing process, we are on slide number 23. The steps in a sourcing process are, and we take a hypothetical situation. You are a sourcing manager and you have just joined a new company. What would you do? How would you begin sourcing? So first thing that you're going to do is you assess the company's current spend. What is the company buying and from where? Second, you're going to assess the supply market. Whatever market is available to you, you're going to look at the market and then see who is offering what. Then go to the third step. You develop a sourcing strategy. From where will you buy what, while minimizing the risk and cost. Fourth step, now you're going to identify the suitable suppliers as per the specific requirement of the organization. And of course, you are going to look at the risk and cost. Both risk and cost should be low. I identify the suitable suppliers, then you get in touch with them, you negotiate with the suppliers for the products, and you negotiate in terms of the prices and deliveries. And once this process has been completed, now you are ready to implement the new supply structure. The last step, after your joining, you have created this new supply structure. And once this new supply structure has been made, orders will be given to the vendors. Vendors are going to supply. They will be made. They will get the payments, and whatever supplies come to the factory, it will be checked for the quality. It will also be noted down whether they have been able to make the delivery on time and things like that. Are there any issues in the functioning of the raw material that they have given? And by way of tracking all these things, you are able to evaluate the performance of the vendors. And at the end of 1 year or maybe 6 months, you can decide, you can track the results and then restart the assessment. So if you have taken 10 vendors, after 6 months, see which of the 10 vendors is not doing good. Give them a warning. By the end of the year, see whether the warning has worked or not. If it has not, remove the, let's say 2 out of the 10 vendors are not good. They have created a lot of trouble, and because of them, the factory has sent a lot of shipments very late. So remove those 2 vendors and look for 2 new vendors. And then again, restart the process of the sourcing, which is again assessment of the company's current spend, assessment of the supply market, development of a strategy, and then identification of suitable suppliers. So what we're going to do is, when we are restarting the assessment, we are going to look for 2 new vendors. So identify 2 new vendors, negotiate with them, and if things go well, then you take them on board. And once they are on board, you give them orders. They produce, they deliver. Again, you evaluate their product and then price and then the deliveries and things like that. And then again, track the results at the end of 6 months. Give warnings if someone is not doing good, and then remove if they don't listen to you. That is fairly a very simple, simplified and very logical sourcing process. So we go to slide number 25, location dynamics in sourcing. Of course, I'm sure you'd agree that local sourcing is, as the location changes, the dynamics change. So local sourcing is the easiest, cheapest. You're so confident because you're sourcing locally from within your own city. Anything goes wrong, you can go to the factory of the person and then, take it up with the vendor. So that's the advantage of local sourcing. But if it is a national sourcing within India but not in your city, you can't be going to your vendor's factory every day because they are in some other city, some other state, maybe located maybe 1,000 kilometers away from you. National sourcing becomes a little complex and a little difficult to handle, difficult to monitor and difficult to control. And if we talk about international sourcing, things go beyond the boundaries. Then the prices are going to be great, the options, the varieties are going to be great, the deliveries are going to be great, but you will not be able to monitor it or control it because they are beyond the national boundary. So as the location changes, the dynamics also change. And we go to slide number 26. There are some additional considerations in location sourcing decisions. So we talked about local, national and international sourcing. And then there are some other considerations. What are those? Those are, the logistics time and the cost. So whoever you are talking to, you will have to check where are they situated, and based on their location, what will be the time that it will take for the product to move from that point to your factory, and what will be the cost involved. That's one. The other consideration is the controls, the monitoring. How will you control? If someone is close by, you can control it. You can actually have one of your employees sit in the premises of the factory of the vendor. So you may have a fairly high level of control. You can actually monitor whether things are being done as per your requirement or not. But the moment the factory or your vendor is situated in another city, you cannot control it and you cannot monitor it. Then another important consideration that we talked about was cash flow, interest cost. The cash flows. If someone is ready to give you credit, your cash flow is going to be great because you will have more money in your hand because you don't have to make the payment for the raw material immediately because your vendor is giving you the credit period. And just in case someone says, okay, I'll give you the credit, but then I want to charge you an interest. If that interest is, let's say, 0.5%, great. Standard, everyone charges 2% per month. If your vendor is charging just 0.5% extra, makes sense. Great deal. So that is also one consideration. Then the tax or the duty implication. Let's say you're buying from West Bengal Now, any product which is coming from West Bengal going to, let's say, Mumbai, there is certain amount of tax or duty being applied, and it may be unfavorable for you. So you'll have to look at that. Now, this was the case earlier. Now that we have a unified GST, now we do not have this problem of the tax or duty implication. It is the same. It is uniform throughout the country. But if you are buying from another country, in that case, custom duties are will come into picture, and depending on the relationship of India with a particular country, the duty would also change. If you are importing from any country which does not have a good relation with India, then the import duties are going to be higher. It is a fact, because the duties are also governed by the political relation between the countries involved. And then the import regulations. If you are importing from other countries, then what are the import regulations? So for fabrics, for accessories, for accessories made from animal like seashells or something like that, or from horns and things like that. So you'll have to check what are the import regulations related to that particular raw material that you're importing or you're planning to import from another country. So you will have to really look into this before you make the decision of sourcing a particular product from a particular country, from a particular location. So now we come to slide number 27, and we want to talk about the trends in sourcing. Now, some of the major trends in sourcing is that manufacturers are consolidating, meaning to say that someone who is manufacturing buttons has also started manufacturing other accessories, or someone who was manufacturing buttons has also started processing the buttons, dyeing it or something like that. Someone who was into weaving has gotten into spinning of the yarns. Manufacturers are consolidating in the sense that a manufacturer had 10 factories. What they've done is that they have merged a couple of factories, and they have now lesser number of factories without altering their capacities. So instead of spreading their factories at 10 corners, now they just have, let's say, 3 or 4 factories. So manufacturers are consolidating, having all the things at lesser number of places. And the second is integration of operations, both downstream and upstream. Downstream is, let's say, if you are into weaving. After weaving, we do the processing of the fabric, which is dyeing or printing. So if someone who is weaving also starts doing dyeing or printing, then you have integrated the downstream operation with your existing operation. If you are weaving, and what happens before weaving is spinning. So as a weaver, if you start spinning, you are going upstream, and you are integrating the operations. And third one is the most, it is also obvious and also has brought in a lot of major adjustments. Retailers have started sourcing directly from manufacturers, meaning to say that retailers have bypassed the dealer, distributor and wholesalers, and they have started buying directly from the manufacturers. So all these middlemen, most of these middlemen have been removed, and these middlemen were part of the sourcing. This is one of the trend in sourcing. And now there is a changed buyer-seller relationship. Neither can dictate each other. Buyer used to be the king. Today, buyer and seller are on equal footing. No one is superior or inferior to the other. So today, neither the buyer nor the seller can dictate each other. And then we come to slide number 28. What's new in sourcing? What's new in sourcing? The most important aspect is global competition. Because of global competition, the sourcing strategies have changed altogether. Now, global competition is a fact, is a truth when we are looking at sourcing. Today we have well-informed, more powerful customers. They can search and within no amount of time can find out who is providing what at what price. And therefore, they can very easily compare and then make the decision. So today, if you think that you will be able to sell a product at a higher price, no one is going to buy that, because people can find out in no amount of time that you are more expensive. Then the other consideration is increasing customer expectations. Now the customers, they have more expectation with every passing day. So for a 500 rupees shirt, the customers expected less last year, but today when they're buying a 500 rupees shirt, their expectation is much more. Today they want free deliveries, free home deliveries. Today they also want a gift along with the product. Today they want that the deliveries should be made within 24 hours. Their expectations are continuously increasing, and there are some players who are actually fulfilling those expectations. So today, if you are making a delivery in 2 days, a lot of your business would be snatched away by the company which is able to do the delivery in 1 day. That's how global competition is. Now the fourth thing, new insourcing, is shorter product life cycle. A product is made, launched, and in a shorter span of time, it reaches obsolescence. So the product life cycle has shortened. So which means you have to be fast, you have to produce lesser quantities per style, you have to give more varieties, and you have to deliver in far lesser amount of time, because the product life cycle is shortening. And then of course the latest in sourcing is new low-cost distribution channels. So today, if you see the distribution channel of Amazon, they have huge warehouses, and from the warehouses they simply send individual goods using the courier, and then the last mile delivery is done by the guy who rides a cycle, not even a motorcycle. So there are new ways and means of new methods, new distribution channels are being created continuously trying to drive down the cost. And then last but not the least, the internet and e-business strategies. Internet and e-business strategies are the single most devastating phenomenon in sourcing, which has altered the shape of market beyond recognition. So the sourcing itself has taken a new shape altogether. And now we come to slide number 29, and we're going to talk about sourcing strategies. So this is a very important, very interesting aspect of sourcing strategies. There are 4 types that we'll be talking about. First one is single sourcing. Single sourcing, what we do is that the buying firm depends on a single company for all or nearly all of an item or service. Fairly simple. You place the order for buttons with only one company. You place all the orders of zippers with only one company. That is single sourcing. Multiple sourcing is the buying firm shares its business across multiple suppliers, meaning to say, I buy buttons from vendor 1, vendor 2, vendor 3. I buy zippers from vendor 4, vendor 5, vendor 6. Everything that I buy labels. I don't buy labels only from one company. I buy labels from at least 3 to 4 companies. That is multiple sourcing. Then we have cross sourcing. In cross sourcing, we're using a single supplier for a certain part or service, or another supplier with the same capabilities for a similar part. Now, cross sourcing is when, let's say, I buy cotton poplin, I buy cotton cambric, and I buy cotton voile. And these are all cotton fabrics, but of slightly different count and construction. And I buy, let's say, poplin from vendor A, and I can buy another quality of cotton which is cambric. I can buy it from A only, but I don't buy it from A, I buy it from B. And then the third quality voile, I buy it from C. Although I can buy poplin, cambric and voile all from vendor A only, but I don't do that. I buy same or similar products from different vendors. The reason being, you should not put all your eggs in one basket. You should not buy all your products from a single person, from a single supplier. So this is called cross-sourcing, where you are buying same or similar products from different suppliers. And then we have dual sourcing. Sourcing is simple, using two suppliers for the same purchased product or service. So same product, but I'm not going to buy from one. I'm going to buy at least from two sources, or maybe three, so that at any given point of time, I am not dependent on one supplier. So if I have to buy, let's say 1 lakh meters of white fabric of poplin 40s, I am going to buy from 3 suppliers. So maybe I give 50% of the quantity to one supplier, which is the largest, and then I give 30% to the second largest, and then I give 20% to the smallest vendor. But I don't buy 1 lakh meters from one vendor, I buy it from 3 vendors. So just in case anything goes wrong with any of the supplier, I will have at least another 2 vendors who are already working on my order. So anything goes wrong with A, let's say, so I simply tell B and C, listen, I am increasing the quantities, and please work on it immediately, and ramp up your production capacities, maybe put in overtime, and give me the required quantity by the given delivery date. So dual sourcing helps in that manner. Imagine if you had placed 1 lakh meters order with one factory and something goes wrong with that factory. Now if you look for another vendor and if you give the order to another factory, that supplier will have to again go through the process of making the samples, sending it to you. You will send it for approval. Once it is approved, then they will go ahead with the bulk. You will lose at least 7 to 10 days in the initial approvals. In the first case, when you had placed the order with 3 vendors at the same time, all the 3 vendors submitted the samples, you took the approval, gave it to them, they went ahead with the bulk production. So the 3 vendors have already gone through the process of approval. So now when anything goes wrong with one vendor, the other 2 vendors, they do not have to go for approvals and other things because they've already gone through it. Now you have simply increased the quantities, delivery date being the same. So in case of dual or triple sourcing, you are at a much comfortable position, just in case anything goes wrong with any one of the vendors. So with that, we come to slide number 31, where we are going to talk about sourcing options. What are the options that we have? So here broadly we are going to talk about 2 options. One is domestic sourcing and the other is offshore sourcing. Now when we say offshore sourcing, we are talking about sourcing from other countries, and when we are talking about domestic sourcing, we are talking about sourcing from within the country. Now we want to look at the advantages and disadvantages of outsourcing. What is the advantage of outsourcing? High strategic flexibility. You can buy anything from anywhere, and it has strategic flexibility. You want something very cheap, you want something very fast, you want the latest, innovative and things like that, you can get it. It's a low investment risk because you're not investing in anything. All the investment is from the vendor side. Because the vendors give you great credit periods, so you have improved cash flow, and because you are accessing the global markets, so you'll have access to the state-of-the-art products and services. You're buying from the globe, so whatever is the latest and the cheapest, you can buy. You have an access to that. What is the disadvantage of outsourcing? What if you choose a bad supplier? It's going to be you're going to face a lot of setback. There's loss of control over the process and core technologies. Now, if you are outsourcing, you have great prices in everything. But if you are outsourcing, let's say iPhone is outsourcing from China. So whichever factory will make iPhone, you will have to give them the process and the core technologies. Otherwise, how will they make the phone? So when you reveal the process and the core technology, you lose control, because then it is open. They can make it, they are making it for you. They can leak the information to other other local manufacturers over there. I mean, that is how iPhone was made in China, and while it was being manufactured, it was copied by other manufacturers who made same similar products for Samsung and for other Chinese phones. So that is what we are talking about when we are saying loss of control over the process and core technologies. And then the other disadvantage, communication coordination challenges. When you are here in India and there is someone else in France, you don't know the language so well. The other person does not understand Hindi so well. And then the time gap is slightly different, about 4.5 hours time gap. It's about 4 hours. So that coordination challenge is there. That is a disadvantage. And then hollowing out of the firm. See, if you are a firm which does nothing on its own, outsources everything, then what is there in the firm? There's nothing. So you'll be a hollow entity, and you should avoid that. So for a company like Levi's, they keep the designing in their control, and they also keep the denim manufacturing in their control. They don't have their own factory, but they keep captive factories, such factories which are not owned by Levi's, but which manufacture only for Levi's for the entire year, no one else. So by that, Levi's keeps a control on design and production of denim products. And other than that, Levi's is also into manufacturing of Levi's also sells t-shirts and belts and other things, but those are not the things which are made by Levi's, and those products are made by other factories which are not captive factories of Levi's. These are such factories which make t-shirts for other brands also. They make it for Levi's also. So by this act, Levi's prevents hollowing out of the firm. So there is something which they control, something which is within their own, which is within their core. So they are not empty, they have something within themselves. And now we talk about advantages and disadvantages of insourcing, which is insourcing is where you are producing the raw material yourself. And this is slide number 33. So the advantage is, what is the advantage of producing on your own? High degree of control. You can control it. It is happening within your own factory. You have the ability to oversee the entire program. There is economies of scale and scope. Economies of scale because you can produce a lot. When you produce a lot, the cost per unit is going to go down. And then the scope. You're making let's say a particular type of button. You can make it in 2 hole, 4 hole, 5 hole, 0 hole, whatever. So there's a lot of scope. Because it is your own factory, you can do all kinds of permutations and combination, new product developments and things like that. You can add different fittings to the machine to add different kind of features or attributes or varieties to the buttons that you are making. Same for let's say zippers or cartons and things like that. So those are the advantages if you are doing this the manufacturing of raw material on your own. But what are the disadvantages? It provides only strategic flexibility, meaning to say that only in the long run you will be flexible. In the short run, if you can produce a particular type of button, you can only produce that particular type of button in the short run. Overnight, you cannot start producing a different kind of button. You can only produce a different kind of button when you buy a new machine, and that buying of new machine is going to happen in the long run. So strategic flexibility will be there, but operational or tactical flexibility will not be there. Suddenly you cannot change things. And if you are doing everything on your own, it's going to require high investment. Who wants to block their cash today? So that's why insourcing, if you're doing it on your own, that's a huge disadvantage because you're going to block a lot of your investment. And there's going to be a loss of access to superior products and services offered by potential suppliers. Now, this point is a little tricky here. Loss of access to superior products. Now, the problem is if you are manufacturing, let's say, the buttons on your own, you have your own factory of buttons. You're manufacturing garments, but you have set up a factory for buttons also. Will you buy new varieties of buttons from an outside vendor? The boss will say, why did we set up a button factory if you have to buy it from outside? So we are going to use buttons which are made in our factory only, because you've made so much of investment. Now, because you've made so much of investment, therefore you should buy from, you should use the buttons which are made in your factory only. Because of that, you will not access the superior products and services which are offered by potential suppliers. So that is a catch-22 situation where you have your own factory, so therefore you are forced to use that button only which is made in your factory. So you're stuck with your own infrastructure. And yeah, so with that, we now have a clear understanding of what are the advantages and disadvantages of outsourcing and the advantage and disadvantage of making it on your own. And now we're going to talk about the sourcing decisions and the key factors. When we look at the sourcing decisions and purchasing activities, they serve to link a company with its supply chain partners. And so sourcing decisions, they're made at very high level, and here the decision is to be made whether the firm or the company or the factory, whether it is going to source it internally, which is whether it's going to make it on its own, or it is going to source externally, which is whether it's going to buy. So this is something which obviously is a very high level decision, and if the firm decides to make it on its own, it means you have to set the entire factory to make the particular raw material. So that's why the sourcing decisions is a high level decision. And if you look at the purchasing activities, what are purchasing activities? These are a set of activities associated with identifying needs, locating and selecting suppliers, negotiating terms, and following up to ensure supply performance. So these are the purchasing activities, which is a subset of sourcing activity. And if we see the factors, what are the factors affecting the sourcing decisions, which we have discussed in slide number 37. Now, factors affecting sourcing decision. Now, let's say fabrics, voile, prints, yarn, etc. So, if it's a voile fabric, which is a structure, print, it's a finish. Yarn dyed is again based on the type of yarn which is being used. So, yarn dyed is made in South India. Prints are done in various hubs like Delhi NCR, Mumbai, Bengaluru, and other southern cities. And voile is something that comes from Surat. And if you look at delivery time or lead time for repeats, now remember, delivery time is, I'm placing the order for the first time. How much time will you take? The guy says 30 days. I say, if I give you the repeat orders, how much time? The guy says 30 days. So why 30 days? I'm placing the order for the first time. So you're looking at it for the first time, so there's going to be a lot of approvals and things like that. And after the approvals have been made, then you will start manufacturing. So therefore, you might require 30 days. But if I give you the same order again, you don't need to take any approvals. So you should be able to give me the product in 20 days, not 30 days. So you might you might find yourself in a situation where you will see that a factory is giving you the delivery period of 30 days when you're ordering for the first time, and will do the repeat order in 20 days, and you will find another factory which will do the order in 40 days but will do the repeat in 10 days. So you might use the first factory for the first order, but for the repeat order, you might do it with the second factory, which can do it in 10 days only. Now, if you look at the location factor, I am based out of Patna. If there's a vendor who's in Patna only, I'd be so happy. But then I might not place the order with the vendor in Patna. I might place the order with a vendor in Mumbai. What would be the reason? Because the guy in Mumbai is giving better quality. The lead time is not so great because they are based out of Mumbai, but then it hardly takes 24 hours or maybe 48 hours by bus or by train to come to transport the product from Mumbai to Patna. So yeah, I can live with those 2 days, extra 2 days. But then the price and the quality is very different. The prices are much better and the quality is absolutely fantastic. The factory in Patna is giving very shabby quality. Now, if I don't place the order in Patna, I don't even place the order in Mumbai, I place the order in Shanghai. Why would I do that? That would be only because despite the distance, despite the odds, despite the difference of nationality, country, timing and other things, I still place the order in Shanghai. What could be the reason? They make absolutely fantastic quality. The delivery period is very less and the prices are unimaginable. 1/3 the price of what is being given by Mumbai. So why do people from India buy from Shanghai? That is because the prices are so different, so low. So people are ready to undertake the risk of buying from another country. Risking, there could be a fraud sitting in China who would take the money, take the advance and then not make the goods and run away with the money. There are so many risks. But still people are buying from China, not from Mumbai or Patna. So there could be a valid reason, and the valid reason could be what? Amazing quality, amazing variety and superb prices. The price difference has to be so high that people are ready to take the risk and they are ready to buy from Shanghai instead of buying from Patna or Mumbai. So location is a huge factor. And then we have anti-dumping duties. Now let's say you want to buy pen drive from China. It comes for a fraction of the price at which it sells in India. But the problem is, once this pen drive reaches India customs, because it's very cheap, the customs it levies anti-dumping duties. So after putting anti-dumping duties, these pen drive become slightly more expensive than the market rates at which the pen drives are selling in India. Now what do? You cannot sell expensive pen drive. The same pen drive selling at 90 rupees, the same pen drive you cannot sell at 100 rupees. Not possible. So anti-dumping duties, if it is applicable, if India is putting in anti-dumping duties on pen drives being imported from China, you should be aware of that. And if that is the case, you may not buy from China, you might buy it from Taiwan or from some other country. And then one of the most logical and very obvious factor is cost. If the cost is less, I would like to buy. If the cost is more, I would like to look at other parameters and then decide whether I'd like to buy from you or not. But cost is obviously the most important factor. Not the only factor, but the most important factor. Obviously, you will also look at other factors also before making the decision of buying from a particular vendor. And then, of course, we have design and value-added services. Now, there are a lot of orders which come to India and they don't go anywhere. So, because of the design sensibility of India and because of the kind of value-added services like, hand embroideries and beadwork, sequin work and things like that, which, can be done only in India. No one else can do it anywhere. So those orders come to India only. So if French designers want hand embroidered or hand sequined or hand, other handwork to be done, they will come to India. So that is the single important factor because of which they are sourcing from India. because of the design and because of the value-added services. And then we have reliability and dependability. Now this is again a very important factor. At the end of the day, you don't want to buy from any such vendor who is not reliable or who is not dependable. Regardless of the cost of design of whatever, if a vendor is not reliable, you can't think of placing any orders with these vendors. As an Indian importer, if you are trying to import, if you want to import something, will you import anything from Pakistan? There could be emotional, undertones to it. Then you will be scared that at any given point of time, India-Pakistan, the relations are so volatile. Any day, India will put sanctions on the Pakistani exports to India, and your orders will get stuck in between. So when you see the political relation between India and Pakistan, you will not buy from the Pakistani vendors, because the reliability or the dependability of the India-Pakistan relationship is very, very volatile. So despite Pakistan giving the best of quality, best of prices, you may still not buy from Pakistan. Why? Because of lack of reliability or dependability. And lack of reliability and dependability not of the vendor. The vendor may be very reliable and dependable, but the relationship between India and Pakistan is volatile, and it has been known to be very volatile since last 6 decades. So this is one of the most important factors which affect the sourcing decision. And now we go to slide number 38, and this is a very simple and a beautiful example here. Factors affecting a sourcing decision. You just change the type of fabric, type of an attribute, and the sourcing, the source would change. So handloom is going to come from the villages, from the clusters. Pardloom is going to come from the clusters or other smaller towns, smaller cities. But handloom comes from handlooms, and pardloom does not come from handloom. And handloom and pardloom are normally in the villages or small towns. The mills are in the big cities. Now, if you want dyed or if you want yarn dyed, there's a difference of earth and sky. Dyed is anywhere in India, most of the apparel manufacturing hubs, but yarn dyed is only Erode, Salem, Karur. You say natural is most parts of India, but man-made is only from Surat. If you say circular knits, which is t-shirts, go to Tirupur, little bit of t-shirts in Ludhiana. But if you say flat knits, which is sweaters, only Ludhiana, nowhere else. So if you say knits, circular knits, flat knits, that itself, the source changes, and that too, it's not close by. One is down south and the other is up north. So that's the huge difference that, the sourcing decision is going to change entirely based on whether it is circular knit or whether it is flat knit, or whether it is natural or whether it is man-made. So minute changes in the product, and then you see that the entire sourcing decision has changed. So it's very interesting, very peculiar, but very important for any of the players to keep in mind. And then we come to the last slide of this session. Very interesting and very important. And this is the portfolio analysis. In the portfolio analysis, we look at a particular factory, see what are the type of products that are being made and what are the type of raw materials required, and what are the various sources from where these raw materials are being procured, and then place it on a grid. Now we have this grid, 2x2 grid, in which in the horizontal axis we have value potential, value in the sense the price wise value. So low value means something which can be bought for low amount of rupees, and high value means something which is expensive, for which you have to pay high value in terms of rupees. In the vertical axis, we have complexity or risk impact, meaning to say higher side means higher level of complexity or higher risk, and lower side means low complexity or low risk. Now we have 4 quadrants: A, B, C, and D. Now A is where the complexity is high but the value is less. B is where the complexity is high and the value is very high, which is the most risky, critical. A is bottleneck because the value is less but the complexity is high. If you look at C, the value is high but the complexity is less, and D is where the complexity is less and the value is also very less. So it's very routine, and it's something which is very, very least critical, and people don't really bother about it because the value is very less and the complexity is also very less, which means it's very easy to handle. Now if you look at A, we call it bottleneck. Now the example is when you have to buy accessories from Hong Kong. Now these accessories are pretty cheap, but without these accessories you will not be able to manufacture the garments, and these accessories have to come from Hong Kong. Now Hong Kong is part of China. China has a New Year. New Year is for about 12 days. You have to be very careful that whenever you are taking orders, you have to see where does the Chinese New Year lie, and whether you will get stuck, in the sense that if you place an order on a particular day, and if the vendor requires 10 days, now after 5 days only the Chinese New Year is starting. Then the vendor will take 5 days plus those 12 days of New Year and then another 5 days. So you're going to lose 12 days at least. And 12 days is such a long time that your order will get delayed. So the value is very less, but the complexity is very high. So that's why you call it a bottleneck. If you look at B, which is the most dangerous zone, the complexity is high and the value is also very high. Now in case you're doing products for Hugo Boss or for Gucci or Givenchy or any of these big designers, and they say that you have to buy this particular fabric from Italy only, so the value is high, and because you have to import it from another country, so the complexity is also high, and without the fabric you cannot dream of stitching the garment, because without the fabric what do you do? So this is critical area. You have to be very, very, very careful. You cannot go wrong in this, and your planning has to be very, very tight. So finished fabric from Italy is an example of critical quadrant where the value is high, the complexity is high. So your maximum attention has to be given to B quadrant, which is critical. Now if you look at C, C is where the value is high but then the complexity is low. So if you are buying regular denim from Ahmedabad, from Arvind Mills, regular denim, 3x1 twill or 2x1, 1x2 or 3x2 twill, which is regular fabric from Arvind denims. So in that case, you don't really pay so much of attention, but because the value is high, so you try to leverage it. Leverage means you place a lot of orders with a single factory and you try to get great prices from the vendor, because there is no complexity. There are many vendors who can produce that kind of fabric and give it to you, and because the value is high, you would like to bring down the prices as much as possible. So you try to leverage in this C quadrant. Now if you look at D quadrant, which is routine, the value is low, complexity is low, not a big deal. You can buy buttons, zippers, Royal Georgette poplin from Westie Market. These are fairly routine. You don't even have to bat an eyelid. No particular amount of effort is required to buy these. So in this case, because it is routine, so you try to automate it. You pay the least amount of attention. You create such softwares or systems which automatically place the order, because it's fairly simple and the value is also low. So why even put any amount of effort into this? So let the computer itself place the orders. After every 2 months, 3 months, let the software place the order. So routine, in case of routine, you try to save the ordering cost. You don't want to have any manpower which will be specially ordering these items. It should be automatically ordered. In case of leverage, you try to place the order with single or lesser number of vendors so that you are able to get better prices. In case of critical, you can do nothing. You have to put in a lot of effort and ensure that nothing goes wrong and you get the products on time. But in case of critical, what you also try to do is, as a part of the strategy, is that try to get that type of fabric developed in India itself, so that you are able to shift that fabric from critical to leverage, because you don't want to you don't want to expose yourself to the critical situation all the time. And in case of bottleneck also, we try to develop those, just like we have these trims from Hong Kong. So we try to develop these trims in India only, so that it from bottleneck it shifts to routine, low value and low complexity. So you want to shift bottleneck to routine, and you would like to shift critical to leverage. So the advantage or the benefit of doing this portfolio analysis is to see what are the various raw materials that you buy and where do they fall, A, B, C, D, and then you try to shift A to D and B to C. So that's about it related to sourcing for the apparel exports. Thank you.